Hi, Freddie. As I said, I was going to start doing chapter number 2 today. And I can't wait. It's another short chapter, but I really been liking Harry Potter books lately. I'm glad I get to read those with you because I think they're quite exciting. And also, what I want you to do, if definitely anytime you come across anything that you don't understand, or anything that you think is funny or you think might help you out in when it comes time to doing your responses or even talking in your book clubs, put it in a post-it note, put it inside the book on that page, and then you can go back to it and reference it. So that you're not like, hey, wasn't I misunderstanding something here? Or did, I thought this part was really funny and interesting so that you have something to talk about with your friends when you do your book club. Um, like we talked so easily the other day. That's what I want you to be able to do with your book club partners. I want you to be able to talk to them about different things. So let me read this chapter 2. Like I said, it's pretty short, so it won't take me too long. And I hope you enjoy it. Okay. Doobie's warning. Harry managed not to shout out, but it was a close thing. But it was a close thing. The little creature had the little creature on the bed had large bat-like ears and bulging green eyes the size of tennis balls. Harry knew instantly that this was what was watching him out of the garden hedge that morning. As they stared at each other, Harry heard Dudley's voice from the hall. "May I take your coat, Mr. and Mrs. Mason?" The creature slipped off the bed and bowed so low that the end of its long, thin nose touched the carpet. Harry noticed that it was wearing what looked like an old pillowcase, with rips for the arms and the leg holes. Hello, said Harry nervously. Harry Potter, said the creature in a high-pitched voice Harry was sure would carry down the stairs. So long as um, Doobie, so long as Doobie wanted to meet you, sir, such an honor it is. Thank you, said Harry, edging along the wall and sinking into his desk chair next to Hedwig, who was asleep in her large cage. He wanted to ask, "What are you?" but thought it would sound too rude, so instead he said, "Who are you?" "Doobie, sir, just Doobie. Doobie, the house elf," said the creature. "Oh, really?" said Harry. I don't want to be rude or anything, but isn't it a great time for me to have a house elf in my bedroom?" "It isn't a great time to have my house elf in my bedroom." And Petunia's high false laugh sounded from the living room. The elf hung his head. "Not that I'm not pleased to meet you," Harry said quickly. "But is there any particular reason why you're here?" "Oh, yes, sir," said Doobie earnestly. "Doobie has come to tell you, sir, it is difficult, sir. Doobie wonders where to begin." "Sit down," said Harry politely, pointing to the bed. To his horror, the elf bursted into tears, very noisy tears. Harry thought he heard the voices downstairs flutter. "I'm sorry," he whispered. I didn't mean to offend you or anything. Offend Dooby? Choked the elf. Dooby has never asked to sit down by a wizard like an equal. Harry, trying to say shh and looked comforting at the same time, ushered Dooby back to the bed where he was hiccuping like a large and very ugly doll. At least he managed to control himself and sit with his great eyes fixed on Harry in an expression of watery admiration. I read this a little bit earlier, and I had put on a note Dooby has never been asked to sit down like an equal. So that tells me that Dooby was treated like a servant, like somebody lesser than what a wizard was. Um, and I also think that that's weird that Dooby talks in the third person. Like Dooby himself calls himself Dooby. So Dooby has never been told to sit down or asked to sit down. It's I think that's kind of weird, but that tells me what more about the character. You couldn't have met many decent wizards, said Harry, trying to cheer him up. Dooby shook his head. Then, without warning, he leaped up and started banging his head fiercely on the window, shouting, "Bad Dooby! Bad Dooby!" "Don't! What are you doing?" Harry hissed, springing up and pulling Dooby back onto the bed. Hedwig had woken up with a particular loud screech and was beating her wings wildly against the bars of the cage. "Dooby had to punish himself, sir," said the elf, who had gone slightly cross-eyed. "Dooby almost spoke ill of his family, sir." "Your family?" "The wizard family. Dooby serves, sir. Dooby is house elf, bound to serve one house and one family forever." "Do they know that you are here?" asked Harry curiously. Dooby shuddered. "Oh, no, sir, no. Dooby will have to punish himself almost grievously for coming to see you. Sir Dooby will have to shut his ears in the oven door for this. If they ever knew, sir. But wouldn't they notice if you shut your ears in the oven door?" "Dooby doubts it, sir. Dooby is always having to punish himself for something, sir. They let Dooby get on with it, sir. Sometimes they remind me to do extra punishments." "But why don't you leave? Escape?" "A house elf must be set free, sir, and the family will never set Dooby free. Dooby will serve the family until he dies, sir." Harry stared. "And I thought I had it bad staying here for another 4 weeks," he said. "This makes the Dursleys sound almost human." "Can't anybody help you? Can't I?" Almost at once, Harry wished he hadn't spoken. Dooby dissolved again into wails of gratitude. "Please," Harry whispered frantically, please be quiet. If the Dursleys hear anything, if they know you're here." Harry Potter asked if he can help Dooby. "Dooby has heard of your greatness, sir, but of your goodness, Dooby never knew." Harry, who was feeling distantly hot in the face, said, "Whatever you've heard about my greatness is a load of rubbish. I'm not even top of my year at Hogwarts. That's Hermione. But he stopped quickly because thinking about Hermione was painful. "Harry Potter's humble and modest," said Dooby. His orb-like eyes glowed. "Harry Potter speaks of his triumphs over the who must not be named." "Voldemort?" said Harry. Doobie clapped his hands over his bad ears and moaned, "Oh, speak not of the name, sir, speak not the name." "Sorry," said Harry quickly. "I know a lot of people don't like it. My friend Rod—" He stopped again. Thinking about Ron was painful too. Doobie leaned towards Harry, his eyes wide as headlights. "Doobie heard tell," he said hoarsely, "that Harry Potter met the Dark Lord for a second time, just weeks ago. That Harry Potter escaped yet again." Harry nodded, and Doobie's eyes suddenly shone with tears. "Ah, sir," he gasped, dabbing his face with a corner of his grubby pillowcase he was wearing. "Harry Potter is valiant and bold. He has braved so many dangers already. But Doobie has come to protect Harry Potter, to warn him, even if he does have to shut his ears in the oven door later. Harry Potter must not go back to Hogwarts." There was a silence broken only by the click of knives and forks from downstairs, and a distant rumbling of Uncle Vernon's voice. "What?" Harry stammered. "But I've got to go back. Term starts on September 1st. It's all that's keeping me going. Don't you know what it's like here? I don't belong here. I belong in your world, at Hogwarts." "No, no, no," squeaked uh, Doobie, shaking his head so hard his ears flopped. "Harry Potter must stay where he is safe. He is great, too good to lose. If Harry Potter goes back to Hogwarts, he will be in mortal danger." "Why?" said Harry in surprise. "There is a plot, Harry Potter, a plot to make most terrible things happen at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Has known it for months this year," whispered Doobie, suddenly trembling all over. "Doobie has known it for months, sir. Harry Potter must not put himself in peril. He is too important, sir." "What terrible things?" said Harry at once. "Who's plotting them?" Doobie made a funny choking noise, and then banged his head frantically against the wall. "All right!" cried Harry, grabbing the elf's arm to stop him. You can't tell me. I understand. But why are you warning me?" A sudden, unpleasant thought struck him. "Hang on. This hasn't got anything to do with with you know who, has it?" "You could just shake your head or nod," he added hastily as Dobie's head tilted wordly close to the floor again. Slowly, Dobie shook his head. Not he who must not be named, sir." But your but Dobie's eyes were wide, and he seemed to be trying to give Harry a hint. Harry somehow um, was completely lost. "He hasn't got a brother, has he?" Doobie shook his head. His eyes were even wider than ever. "Well, then, I can't think who else could have a chance to make miserable things happen at Hogwarts," said Harry. "I mean, there's Dumbledore, for one thing. You knew who Dumbledore is, don't you?" Doobie lowered his head. "Albus Dumbledore is the greatest headmaster Hogwarts has ever had. Doobie knows it. Sir Doobie has heard Dumbledore's powers rival those of he who must not be named as the height of his strength. But, sir," Doobie's voice dipped to an urgent whisper, "there are powers Dumbledore doesn't powers no decent wizard." And before Harry could stop him, Doobie bounced off the bed, seized Harry's desk lap, and started beating himself around the head with ear-splitting yelps. A sudden silence fell downstairs. 2 seconds later, Harry's heart, throbbing madly, heard Uncle Vernon coming up the hall, calling Doobie. Dudley must have let his television on again. The little tyke. Quiet, in the closet! Quick, in the closet! Hissed Harry, stuffing Doobie in, shutting the door, and flinging himself onto the bed just as the door handle turned. "What the devil are you doing?" said Uncle Vernon through gritted teeth, his face horribly close to Harry's. "You've just ruined the punchline of my Japanese golfer joke. One more sound, and you'll wish you've never been born, boy." He stomped flat-footed from the room. Shaking, Harry let Doobie out of the closet. See what it's like here," he said. "See why I've got to go back to Hogwarts? It's the only place I've got. Well, I think I've got friends. Friends who don't even write to Harry Potter," said Doobie slyly. "I expect they've just been—" "Wait a minute," said Harry, frowning. "How do you know my friends haven't written to me?" Doobie shuffled his feet. Harry Potter mustn't be angry with Doobie. Doobie did it for the best. "Have you been stopping my letters?" "Doobie has them here, sir, and said the elf, stepping nimbly out of Harry's reach. He picked a thick wad of envelopes from the inside of the pillowcase he was wearing. Harry could make out Hermione's neat handwriting, Ron's untidy scrawl, and even a scribble that looked as though it was from the Hogwarts gamekeeper Hagrid. Doobie blinked anxiously up at Harry. Harry Potter mustn't be angry, Doobie hoped. If Harry Potter thought his friends had forgotten him, Harry Potter might not want to go back to school, sir. Harry wasn't listening. He made a grab for the letters, but Doobie jumped out of reach. "Harry Potter will have them, sir, if he gives Doobie his word that he will not return to Hogwarts. Ah, sir, this is a danger you must not face. Say you won't go back, sir." "No," Harry said angrily. "Give me my friend's letters." "Then Harry Potter leaves Doobie no choice," said the elf sadly. Before Harry could move, Doobie had darted into the bedroom's door, pulled it open, and sprinted down the stairs. Mouth dry, stomach lurching, Harry sprang after him, trying not to make a sound. He jumped the last 6 steps, landing cat-like in the hall carpet. Looking around for Doobie from the dining room, he heard Uncle Vernon saying, "Tell Petunia that very funny story about those American plumbers, Mr. Mason. She's been dying to hear." Harry ran up the hall into the kitchen and felt his stomach disappear. Aunt Petunia's masterpiece of pudding, the mountain of cream and sugar violets, were floating up near the ceiling. On top of the cupboard in the corner crouched Doobie. "No!" choked Harry. "Please, they'll kill me." "Harry Potter must say he's not going back to school." "Doobie, please." Say it, sir." "I can't." Doobie gave a tragic look. "Then Doobie must do it, sir, for Harry Potter's own good." The pudding fell to the floor with a heart-stopping crash, cream splattering the windows and walls as the dish shattered. With a crack like a whip, Doobie vanished. There were screams from the dining room, and Uncle Vernon burst into the kitchen to find Harry rigid with shock, covered from head to toe with Aunt Petunia's pudding. At first, it looked as though Uncle Vernon would manage to gloss the whole thing over. "Just our nephew, very disturbed. meeting strangers upon him. So we kept him upstairs. He shooed the shocked Masons back into the dining room, promised Harry he would fly him to within an inch of his life when the Masons had left, had handed him a mop, and Petunia dug some ice cream out of the freezer, and Harry, still shaking, started scrubbing the kitchen clean. Uncle Vernon might still have been able to make his deal if it hadn't been for the owl. Aunt Petunia was just passing around a box of after-dinner mints when a huge barn owl swooped through the dining room window, dropping a letter onto Mrs. Mason's head and swooping out again. Mrs. Mason screamed like a banshee and ran from the house, shouting about Luderics. Mr. Mason stayed just as long enough to tell the Darsleys that his wife was normally afraid of birds of all shapes and sizes, and asked whether this is their idea of a joke. Harry stood in the kitchen, clutching the mop for support, as Uncle Vernon advanced on him. Demon glint in his eyes. "Read it," he hissed evilly, banishing the letter the owl had delivered. "Go on, read it." Harry took it. It did not contain birthday greetings. "Dear Mr. Potter, we have received intelligence that the Hoover charm has used at your place of residence this evening at 12 minutes past 9. As you know, underage wizardry are not permitted to perform spells outside of school, and further, spell work on your part may lead to expulsion from said school. Decree for the reasonable restriction of underage sorcery, 1875, paragraph C. We would also ask you to remember that any magical activities that risk notice by members of the non-magical community, Muggles, is a serious offense under Section 13 of the International Confederation of Warlocks, Statute of Secrecy. Enjoy your holidays. Yours sincerely. And then Harry looked up from the letter and gulped. "You didn't tell us you wouldn't allow to use magic outside the school. You didn't tell us you weren't allowed to use magic outside the school," said Uncle Vernon, a mad gleam dancing in his eyes. "Forgot to mention it. Slipped your mind, I dare say." He was bearing down on Harry like a giant bulldog, all his teeth bared. "Well, I've got news for you, boy. I'm locking you up. You're never going back to school. Never. And if you try magic yourself out, they'll expel you." And laughing like a maniac, he dragged Harry back upstairs. Uncle Vernon was as bad as his word. The following morning, he paid a man to fit bars on Harry's windows. He himself fitted a cat flap in the bedroom door so that the small amounts of food could be pushed inside 3 times a day. He let Harry out to use the bathroom morning and evening. Otherwise, he was locked into his room around the clock. 3 days later, the Dursleys were showing no signs of relenting, and Harry couldn't see any way out of his situation. He lay on his bed watching the sun sinking behind the bars on the window and wondering miserably what was going to happen to him. What was the good of magicking yourself out of the room if Hogwarts would expel him for doing it? Yet life at Privet Drive had reached an all-time low. Now that Darsleys knew they weren't going to wake up um, as, as fruit bats, he had lost his only weapon. Dobby might have saved Harry from horrible happenings at Hogwarts, but the way things were going, he would probably starve to death anyway. The cat-like flap rattled, and Aunt Petunia hand appeared, pushing a bowl of canned soup into the room. Harry, whose insides were aching with hunger, jumped off his bed and seized it. The soup was stone cold, but he drank half of it in one gulp, then crossed the room on to Hedward's cage and tipped the soggy vegetables to the bottom of the bowl into the empty food tray. She ruffled her feathers and gave him a look of deep disgust. It's not good turning your beak up at it. That's all we've got, said Harry grimly. He put the empty bowl back on the floor next to the cat flap and lay back down in bed, somehow even hungrier than he had been before the soup. Suddenly, he was still supposedly he was still alive in another 4 weeks. What would happen if he don't turn up at Hogwarts? Would someone be sent to see why he hadn't come? Would they be able to make the Dursleys let him go? The room was glowing dark, exhausted, stomach rumbling, mind spinning over the same unanswered question. Harry fell into an uneasy sleep. He dreamed that he was on a show in the zoo, with a card calling an underage wizard attached to his cage. People googled through the bars at him as he lay starving and weak on the bed of straw. He saw Dobby's face in the crowd and shouted out, asking for help, but Dobby called, "Harry Potter is safe. There, sir," and vanished. Then Dursleys appeared, and Dudley rattled the bars of the cage, laughing at him. "Stop it," Harry muttered at the rattling pounding in his sore head. "Leave me alone. Cut it out. I'm trying to sleep." He opened his eyes. Moonlight was shining through the bars on the window, and somebody was googling through the bars at him. A freckle-faced, red-haired, long-nosed someone. Ron Weasley was outside Harry's window. That's quite exciting, huh? So we met a new character, Dobby. And remember, he was a house elf. And he's trying to save Harry Potter. He doesn't want Harry Potter to go back to Hogwarts. But he kind of made Harry's life miserable, didn't he? Well, guess we'll find out more. Okay? I'll talk to you later.